Hello and welcome everyone to the For the Love of Emails videocast for holiday season 2021. I'm Tejas Pitka, Senior Product Evangelist at Netco Cloud. Today we'll be discussing the holiday email campaigns with Jennifer Lance. She is the Vice President of Industry Relations and Deliverability at Kitbox. Welcome to the videocast, Jennifer.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yep, it's great to have you here. So talking about the upcoming holiday season, firstly, how do you think that this holiday season, is it going to be different from the last year, or do you see a similar trend going on?
Well, I think there's going to be some similarities and some differences. I was reading the report published from Deloitte and MasterCard spending forecasts, and they anticipate spendings going up 7%, reaching upwards of 800 billion. So in that respect, spending is going to be different. I think we're going to see a lot more there. There's a lot more confidence. And how that translates to sending, I think will also create another story as well. And you've probably heard this from many people. The pandemic has changed a lot of things. Email has clearly showed how crucial it is, although email's dead, right? But with that in mind, yeah, it's dead. The volume of mail, I think, will continue to increase. It does every year. So that's a trend that happens consistently. But with the pandemic really growing the base of a lot of mailers lists, more people are signing on, more people are consuming content as well as shopping. You also have senders that maybe didn't spend a lot of time in email before that are now. Maybe senders that never wanted to do email are now as well. So I think the volume in general is going to be much higher this year as well. I think the messaging will be a little different this year because we're in a different position than we were last year with the pandemic. According to Media Post, the consumers polled 44% said they want to shop in store for Black Friday. And so I think that's going to change the dynamic a little bit. I think there's still a lot of hesitancy about large events, but shopping is often something that's very individual and isolated in a way. So that's an easy way to get out of the house. However, the big shopping events like Big Friday kind of contradict that. So depending on how things transition over the next few months will really determine what the end result will be. But when I think about putting the two together, you've got the higher spending forecasted and then the desire to just get out of the house. I would say that we'll see more opportunities to have in-store and online incentives. When you think about online shopping, there's so many ways to upsell and really create a different experience online, which is really great. So you might be looking for one thing, but then you end up buying a lot more. But there's nothing quite like being surrounded by products and seeing them in the store. That really helps those impulse buys, which I'm terribly guilty of. And one way in particular, one way in particular to make that in-store shopping more appealing with everything going on is making sure you send out really good deals. And then when you couple that with everything going on, if you can spread out the shopping opportunities so that customers can shop with peace of mind, I think we're going to see some unique offers, unique ways to shop, whether it's a reserve online and shop in store, kind of like when my mom used to do a layaway when I was little. It was always fun to go to the store later and buy it. So my last thought on that is that we're going to, just like last year, we've always promoted, start communicating early, start setting the expectations now and letting them know what's coming. I think the purpose will be a little different this year because you have these two dynamic pieces coming into play that weren't there last year. So I think we're going to see a lot of creativity, invitations, maybe calendar notices, hybrid shopping models, maybe ways to throttle shopping in person. Appetite is there. So ultimately making sure the incentives to shop as well as new experiences and ways to shop are going to really shine this year.
Yeah, those are great insights because I thought that online shopping has now become like a lifestyle habit rather than just something that people were doing over the pandemic. And now your stat, where you said that almost 50% want to shop in store for Black Friday. That's interesting. I mean, there's going to be some interesting hybrid models coming up this year, and it will be good to see who actually wins. Is it going to be online or in store shop? So yeah, great. Um, Secondly, what with now the Apple privacy changes, the upcoming holiday season. It's at the doorstep. Is there one solid delivery tip for marketers that you can recommend, in order to improve the inboxing, particularly during the holiday season?
Well, I would say instead of improving the inbox, your focus should be maintaining it as well as your reputation. Because if you aren't inboxing now, there likely needs to be a lot of work and a fundamental shift in what you're doing. And that really will be what you would need to focus on is if you're not inboxing now, get your reputation in better standing. But if you are, you need to make sure you're maintaining it. And so you need to focus on your data, the trends for your products, how your customers want to shop, deals they are looking for to get them in store or online, and really engage them. And I think that's actually the biggest tip is engage your customers. The largest mailbox providers use artificial intelligence, which is fed heavily by engagement signals. And they use that to determine reputation and placement. So even if we as senders can't track what your customers are doing, or we have less insight due to the MPP, the mailbox providers still can see it. So you still want to elicit engagement as much as possible. And you're going to want to do this in the traditional ways that we used to when we had, we knew all the metrics. So opened, you think about your subject lines, make sure they're engaging. Clicks, you want to make sure the offers are enough to actually pull your customer through the email. Not spam, make sure they know where to look for your email. And if you're changing anything about your branding, your addresses, they should know so they know to look for you. And then also engage through actions that are specific to the providers. So reminders, stars, folder placement, Google has Google Actions, you could do schema.org, Gmail annotations, anything that changes it up a bit that can elicit engagement in ways that you might not see, but the providers do. And so with that engagement, you want to make sure you optimize it. You don't want to engage one person. You want to engage as many of the population that you're sending to. So you need to test and test now and test as much as you can with your content, your cadence, your timing, the whole gamut. And measure, as you're testing, measure with the metrics that you do have access to, such as clicks, site activity, and sales pre and post send, coupons used, articles read, your unsubscribed, your complaints, any data that you have, see how it correlates to what you're doing. And that will help you determine your success and how you're tracking when you actually get to the big send season. And with that in mind, also keep in mind that engagement is heavily influenced by cadence and fatigue. So when you think about the holiday season, it's usually not just a lot of volume, but a lot more mail from one sender to the same audience. So really be cognizant of what you're sending and the reaction, how those extra touches go that maybe you don't normally send. Consider releasing maybe an early calendar and ask your customers to sign up for extra seasonal alerts. But if you do that, you have to provide an easy way to opt out via a preference center. You need to be able to make sure you can give them a way to have a separate stream so you can still protect your core list, but also give customers who want those extra offers, those extra touches, that personalized communication while keeping your other lists still engaged, but not overwhelming them with all the extra volume and content that you're providing.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, with Apple privacy changes now coming in, to the point that you made that, try to get extra information from the customers on their touch points. I think that's customer feedback is going to be like super important now for marketers way before the holiday season now, so that they can actually target the content that, their customers are looking for during the season. So, yeah, I think if clicks are going to be the new currency for email matrix, I think customer feedback is going to be the king. Definitely.
Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty great. So, I mean, you have worked with a lot of companies on improving their deliverability at Kickbox and before as well. So, can you discuss like one instance of a good deliverability practice that you were able to recommend to the customer and that significantly improved the inboxing?
Absolutely. I'll start with my disclaimer that we always assume consent is there and expectations are set correctly, because that's the foundation. If you don't have that, you won't have anything after that. But the one strategy I've used over and over again that's been very successful, and it's not the only strategy, but the one that I think is the strongest, is engagement targeting. In the past, we did this with opens and clicks. How we do this in the future will likely be different. And I say that because you can focus a lot on clicks, but you can still drive a lot of actions through somebody just reading your email and not necessarily clicking through. But there are many digital signals out there that indicate interest. And those are ones you're going to want to really pay attention to. But you have to be very careful because they're not all related to email. So understanding the quality of your email list and the data you have and how they translate together, how they talk to one another and actually correlate is really important, and how that also relates to your site activity, your sales, and everything. So, one example you could have from a customer is that you have a customer that's very active on a site, but they never read their email. As a marketer, that's high engagement. They're very interested. They come here all the time. But to the mailbox provider, you're mailing someone who's inactive, who's stagnant. And so for them, that's not engagement. And what they're focused on is what customers want. And they really determine that by their customers' actions in their application, not so much anywhere else. So even though they're engaged on site, if they're not in email, that's going to make an impact. And that will factor things in. And mailbox providers, especially the larger ones, the smaller ones may not have insight there, but the larger ones, they know when you're interacting, and when you're not. So you really need to understand, again, your data and which metrics indicate interest. And, the ones that are telling the providers, I want this. Yes, 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 yes. So ultimately, your providers aren't going to focus on just a few customers, because you will have some outliers where customers are interested, but they're not really engaging. You want to look at kind of the bulk and the overall, like what is the trending showing to the providers. They're going to be looking at clustering and all the general behavior that's indicating you as a sender and what's wanted. So again, that's something that I would highly focus on, is the engagement tracking. And that's one thing that we've done, is you start with highly engaged. And again, you may not have all your metrics, but start with what you know of interest in the email. Start to build your reputation. And as you start to see signals, and you can start to increase your volume. And once you get to that good spot, you can start to see what correlates. So what other data metrics that you see are positive elsewhere are also positive in email. And then you can make there might be some assumptions, but you can correlate and really make better decisions about who you're targeting in the email. And then say, well, this customer is highly engaged, but maybe they're better targeted with social or some other medium that you might have.
I think that's a great point. I mean, now with all these MPP changes coming up, I think a marketer will have to look very closely into customer behavioral data rather than just engagement data. I mean, what is this customer's interaction on other channels? I mean, email is not the only channel that's available to them. Yeah, that's a great point, that they can also target them via the other channels if they have those statistics basically and they analyze them. So yeah, great points. Those were some great deliverability tips. Thanks a lot, Jennifer, for joining us on this video cast. Those were some great email strategy and deliverability insights. I hope marketers and the other listeners, who are watching this, they can take away some great practical tips from this conversation and start implementing them right away for the holiday season. To the listeners, we'll be back soon with more actionable email insights and tips to maximize your email results. If you want to get in touch with any of our experts, then you can do so at netcocloud.com, and you can try to scale your email performance to the next level. Till then, this is Tejas signing off.